Góðan daginn, good morning everybody. Nice to have you here today in this presentations, this webinar. It's a challenging topic that we are talking about today, Ræktunarstefna heimsins, the trends in how we grow in the world and the legislation. And Pius, you're going to talk about this today. Our objective, as always here, is to educate people on and growers, both organic and non-organic growers, on sustainable growing methods and supply good fertilizers for that. We will have, after your presentation, Pius, we will have a discussion. This is recorded, and as always, you can ask questions in Icelandic and English in the chat bot after. So take it away, Pius.
Thank you. We will have a new fertilizer regulation in Europe, based on basically old laws from earlier on, and I will go into this, and I will end with the ideas for the future. This fertilizer regulation is the FBR called. It's part of the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is important because in 2030, the European Committee wants to have a circular economy, especially circular agriculture. But worldwide, we are all heading to a circular economy as a whole. So when it comes to fertilizing products, fertilizers, there is a lot being put to work, and I was a member of the Dutch NEN, who occupies with this framework 455, as we call it. And it's the intention that products all get their CE marking. So when it's CE marked, it's approved for use in all European countries. It doesn't regulate the use of the products or the mode of application or the mode of action. What it does, it replaces the existing fertilizer regulation. And it's all about harmonized rules for market placement. We now see that some fertilizers are allowed in one country and not in another one. Some are organic in one country and not allowed in another country. That's kind of strange because soil is basically the same everywhere, soil. Okay, so when you look at the optional harmonization, manufacturers can choose between two market placements. That's along on the left side, the CE marked. That's free to all the countries within Europe, where you can also address the national rules. And some countries have national rules that are still able to overrule the CE markets. That is typical United Europe regulations. We want to do the same everywhere, but we still want to have our individual opinions on specific products. It's a right, but there's no veto right on it from Europe. For manufacturers, it's quite interesting because they can move more and they can work in broader categories. And FBR also opens the door to new technologies for for instance, coating fertilizers, slow release fertilizers, time released fertilizers, provided, and that's the beauty of it, that the coating is biodegradable 100%. So for the current slow release fertilizers, the technology is based on synthetic resins that they stay behind in the ground, which is not so bad in one company, but if you count all this together worldwide, we talk about tons and tons and tons of plastic covering soils worldwide. So that is required to change. It's an option, and it's nice to see that people are working hard on it. Yeah, for farmers, it gives them a wider choice. I don't know if they are really helped with it, but in open markets, it gives them a wider choice. And presumably, maybe because then the price levels will go down for these products. And for the European citizens, they can be sure that most pollutants and diseases are not present in the fertilizing products. But basically, it's already like that. The rules are already like that, but it's being reinforced now. And there's a transition period. The laws were undersigned in 2019 by the EU countries, and in 2020, July, it should be effective. And it will be effective. But to be honest, that's next year, July, it's going to happen. But I haven't heard from one country in the EU that is already ready to make the switch. There's still a lot to be done if we want to manage this rule in 2022. And the EU regulation ensures that the biostimulants are safe and effective. Well, this is something that is built in a very, very protective way. First, we had pesticides and fertilizers. And I will come back to that. Pesticides, chemical pesticides, they actually weaken plants, and therefore you need more fertilizers. But if you use the fertilizers, you will weaken the plants more. And then there is a generation of biostimulants. And these biostimulants, you cannot claim anything. On a biostimulant, you are not allowed to claim, oh, with this biostimulant, the soil is resistant to fusarium. If you claim that, it is immediately a pesticide by law. And that makes even harder for biostimulants to be allowed on the market, and allowance is something, and I'm looking for ways to explain this. Actually, you cannot give any action towards the biostimulants. You cannot claim, well, due to the activity of this biostimulant, the fusarium diseases are less in the ground. You cannot claim that. So how do you prove that your biostimulant is effective? How do you prove effectiveness of a biostimulant where you cannot claim anything? And that's still a topic that I will come back to. And the European Committee played on the very safe side. You can use all these organisms for without rulings. Yes, that is nice because they are, I would say, obligate in the soil. They have to be there, otherwise you cannot even grow plants. And that's so that's exempted from the rulings, which on one hand is actually not so nice, because we know that when it comes to mycorrhizae, and that's in our company a very important product, mycorrhizal fungi, who are obligate symbionts. Many companies sell really bad products, ground up roots, even with pathogens in it, whereas some other companies and our company, we sell mycorrhizal spores, so only the seeds of the fungus without the pathogens, etc. But since there's no ruling for the mycorrhizae, every company on the market that is offering these products has free playing field, which is not so bad, because if they produce inferior products, they will stop selling it automatically because customers don't want it anymore. It's free market principle. But where do we go from here? And that's for me a really difficult thing, because and I've been involved in the development of this whole biostimulant law. The conventional industries, they have a lot to lose, because imagine that people start realizing that they can actually grow healthy plants, that they can grow plants that are healthy. That means that you wouldn't need so much of the chemical fertilizers, or actually then you don't need chemical fertilizers at all, or that plants don't get diseases. Why do you go with all the pesticides? So it has been from day one so obvious and clear that the lobby in Brussels from the conventional industries, they influenced the law on the biostimulants. And the best proof to this is that you cannot make any claim. So what market do you think one can reach if you cannot claim anything? So basically the EU committees have chosen for a system, a very safe system, where biostimulants can be used only to cover the abiotic stresses. So stresses that are not caused by pathogens. That is sunlight, drought, etc. That is abiotic. But our point is, as long as science does not recognize that the current fertilizers are based on plant growth, not on plant health. So if you use chemical fertilizers, 100% sure your plants will go sick, and therefore you will need sprays. You will need pesticides. I haven't read any article yet that proves the opposite. If you use chemical fertilizers, you will need pesticides. You cannot grow healthy plants with chemical fertilizers only. And we know it, it is done. And that is the reason why, maybe that is one of the reasons why the biostimulants are put in one group together with the fertilizers. One group. Where pesticides that fight diseases are a separate group. Fertilizers are minerals, and minerals are not biostimulants. That would be crazy. So if you look at the biotic stresses, that's where you, in the blue zone, that's where you have the the problems, the diseases. But somehow we don't seem to understand that abiotic stresses are mostly caused by the biotic stresses. That means also the use of pesticides. I know this webinar is recorded, and I take it on a personal statement. Biotic stresses, most biotic stresses are caused by pesticides and by unbalanced diets, unbalanced fertilizing principles. And that's actually the whole point. So it's not fair that biostimulants are only allowed to reduce cold, flooding, to make the plant more vital. Nobody's asking what makes the plant less vital. And that's going against some principles. Well, in 2030, the EU, because the people within the EU, they know, but it is very hard to change laws that are so dramatic overnight. So in 2030, the EU wants to ban all the synthetic fertilizers from agriculture because that is the only way to get rid of most of the pesticides, and people don't seem to understand that. If you want less pesticides, then start with using less synthetic fertilizers. So regenerative farming is essential. I'm sorry, there's a mistake here. There's the carbon and nitrogen sources. They should come from animal and plant-based fertilizers. Well, and you can imagine that the opposition is enormous. The people don't want to do without chemical fertilizers. So yes. And it is really essential that we have to learn to fertilize plants in another way. And there's a lack of understanding in how natural and stimulated grow. There's a lack of understanding on how plants can grow in a healthy way. That's basically what I want to say. And you cannot grow plants with chemical fertilizers in a healthy way. Many times it's discussed, why do organic farmers produce less? Well, they don't produce less. Actually, it's not true in many cases. We serve in Europe many organic farmers who actually produce more than conventional farmers with less input and less cost. And they are experienced, and they know they don't need only minerals to have plants to grow. They need tiny amounts of other elements. And I've talked about this extensively in previous presentations. These farmers, they know they need more than only the fertilizers that are being analyzed. Most analyzers go to 11, 14 elements in soil analysis. That's not enough for a plant to grow healthy. And organic farmers, a growing group of organic farmers is experiencing that. We just received data that rock, we call it rock dust, stone meal, very fine ground up rocks. They contain basically all the elements that plants need and can absorb. And we have seen that with the application of the rock dust, even the bacterial activity increases among plants, which is kind of strange to see, but this is the state of science. We know a lot more. And of course, organic farming brings back nature in the fields. And that's also really important. Let me. Organic farming brings back nature in fields and the soil, because in the soil there's a lot of nature as well. And this is my last slide. And in the 5 presentations before, this is the 6th one, I tried to provide you with an insight in the principles of agriculture. And if you haven't seen these yet or listened to it, then I'd like to offer you to go to the VG website or the Facebook page or YouTube and look at these principles. This is the last one. And I wanted to show you the other side of agriculture. There is more than we know. There's more to it, and it's more important to us than ever before. We have had very easy times after the Second World War. Agriculture could grow and grow in Europe and worldwide, but no one cared about the expenses. No one looked at the downsides. That is coming on now. And therefore, I want to inform people on how plants work, because if we start understanding how plants actually work, then we will change automatically, because now we bestow plants with our principles, we put it in plants, and if they don't reply in the right way, they get sick, then we have solutions for that. But if we start really understanding how plants absorb water and minerals, how they use it, what for, etc., then we will get another vision, and then we will see that soil is important. And for that, I go back to one of my first presentations then, and I claimed there, regulatory frameworks for crop inputs were designed when scientists had a much simpler understanding of plant growth. And this is an official statement. It says a lot, because of this simple understanding, we're still throwing chemical fertilizers and pesticides on plants because we don't understand the plants. And it's my quest to make people understand plants. And by the same token, I state that the majority of agricultural research is based on the 160 years old model of fertilizing. And it does not add to new insights. It does not add to what we really need to know. But that's the downside of agricultural research. Most of it is done in 1 year or maybe 3 years. You cannot, and if you use chemical fertilizers only once, you still don't understand how plants function. So as long as scientists execute the trials on plant health with common fertilizers, it's no use. It's simply no use. And by this, I thank you very much for listening to me. And thank you for looking at my face, even though I'm not very comfortable with that, because I really I love to give presentations live so you can interact with people. And now I'm talking to my computer screen, which is actually pretty frustrating. But thank you anyway for all the time and effort you put in this. And I'm glad to give back the word to Jörter.
Thank you, Piers. Thank you again for this excellent presentation again. It really has been, like you said, very thought-provoking 6 presentations until now, and good message, and you challenge some of the traditional way of doing things, which is good. So you look at the roots of how we grow things, and which is really interesting. So we have now opened for questions, if there are some questions, but not so many at the moment at this webinar. It's a tough topic to talk about.
Yeah, even for me.
For you. But the basic message is by banning chemical fertilizers, we will get rid of the pesticide.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the message.
That's the message, yeah. Hlynur, thanks for the lecture at the moment. So if we just, yeah, we will record maybe your next meeting will be in Iceland, Pius, hopefully, sometime soon.
That would be nice, because I really envy you guys for living in a land with so much nature, and you can go skiing every weekend if you wish, and all we have is rain.
Yeah. Okay, then the last couple of slides, we point out our websites. We have good information on our websites, and Facebook pages, Facebook pages, YouTube channel, which this presentation, this webinar will be loaded into, and your website, obviously, our website. You can find all the necessary links there to all the information. So that's it. Thank you, Pius. It has been
Thank you all.
Excellent 6 presentations. Thank you. See you later all. Okay.
We
Bye-bye.
stay in touch. Thank you all for listening, even though it was a very small group today, but it was a boring topic as well, so I can understand that.
Thank you.
All the very best, and looking forward to see you all in Iceland. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.